If the doctor had asked how I managed when I was at my worst, I would have answered that I lay on a floor or a couch or a shower stall in a public space or the ground as though preparing for a grave that would not let me go. That I lay in an earth that existed only in my mind as I walked through crowded streets or waited for customer service or failed exams that determined my future. That I would cry rivers until I became a drought. Then the remains of me would scatter amid the rush of people getting on with their lives. That I lay in silences or hum the hum of grandmothers worried about their children's children in a world that does not make sense. That I would cry out to a God, any God, and ask them why they gave me a uterus and why Eve spoke to serpents and why they brought me into this world and yet did not keep their promise to take me back. That I would haunt the hallways at night, pacing back and forth, waiting for a break in my labor pains, waiting for my insides to crown, waiting to be emptied of what I have been carrying since my first bleed. If the doctors had asked what treatment I preferred, I would have answered every month I cut across myself, place my hands inside to gently cup my uterus to lift her up and lay her beside me. In my fantasy, if she is up against me, then I can soothe what aches her, bring comfort to her like a lover that wants my attention. I can hear her crying. And she has heard that if she cries too much, then her kind are sent into exile, evicted, excised, exorcised, eviscerated. I prefer to keep her. I prefer to be one with her. I prefer to hear her melodious laughter again. If the doctor had asked what I was afraid of, I would have answered, you, because you do not see me. And when I first came into this world, my mother held me to her breast and gave me a name that I cannot remember you speaking. You renamed me, called me patient. I overheard you say it as though I were not whole. In your mouth, I became a fraction, an unsolvable equation, an X in my anonymity. If the doctor had asked if I had any questions, I would have answered, how can I go on? How can I go on? How can I go on? My opening poem was filled with imaginary conversations with imaginary doctors for a very real diagnosis, endometriosis. When I first heard that term, it was from my friend Google. Every month, like clockwork, my belly button would hurt during and after my period. So I asked my doctor. And even though they weren't too worried about it, I Googled pain in belly button during period. Google suggested that I ask my doctor about endometriosis. And when I did, my doctor still wasn't too worried about it. Here's my timeline. That Google search was in 2011. 17 years before that, in 1994, I told my doctor that I was not leaving their office until they gave me the pain prescription that I had asked for in my previous visit. In 2002, I told another doctor that I was not leaving their office until they gave me the shot that makes periods go away. In 2007, I ended up in the ER with vomiting and morphine-level pain. And in 2009, when the vomiting and pain returned, instead of the ER, I went home because I no longer had insurance. So what is this endometriosis? It's a condition where the endometrial lining normally found in the uterus is instead found throughout the body. And as it grows and bleeds outside of the uterus, it causes pain, inflammation, and scarring. And while at least 1 in 10 women are affected by endometriosis, is not very well known. Why not? First off, speaking about one's period is taboo and stigmatized. So then speaking about when periods go wrong is further stigmatized. Second, speaking about a condition that medicine has not figured out the cause, treatment, or cure does not make for a powerful medical narrative. Often the most popular narratives are ones where a person, once ill, is then made good as new. And that's not the story for most women with endometriosis. So listening to endo stories means learning to be with the complexity, vulnerability, and pain of endo. Listening to endo stories means honoring the voices of all women. So considering that, I'd like to bring in the voices of Black women into the room. There are 3 factors that work against Black women with endometriosis. 1, if the first symptom, the most telling symptom of endometriosis is pain, then that pain must first be acknowledged and validated before an endo diagnosis can even be considered. However, there's a pain bias in medicine. During American chattel slavery, there was a belief that Black people did not feel pain the same as white people. And gynecological surgery was routinely performed on enslaved African women without anesthesia. A 2016 study shows that there's still a bias in pain perception and treatment. Research has documented that Black people are systematically undertreated for pain. There's also a pain bias against women, where our symptoms of pain are routinely ignored or dismissed by medical care providers. So while endometriosis can mean debilitating pain, my double disadvantage is that being Black means having my pain discounted, and being a woman means having my pain not believed. The second factor is that when Black women present with the symptoms of endo, they're more likely to be misdiagnosed or underdiagnosed with conditions like fibroids, pelvic inflammatory disease, which is a sexually transmitted infection, or just bad cramps. And when diagnosis does happen, it's often through care in private practice rather than public hospitals, meaning that diagnosis and treatment is also a socioeconomic issue. The third factor is that endometriosis is severely underfunded. And then research on illnesses in Black women further limited. To compare another non-infectious condition, eczema gets almost 3 times the funding of endometriosis. So lack of research and development is part of the problem. And there is a cost for this neglected attention. A 2012 study by the World Endometriosis Research Foundation showed a cost of $119 billion to the US. And that can decrease if time to diagnose and treat were shortened. However, it takes on average 6 to 10 years to diagnose. By the time my pain was acknowledged, it was 2017. And the ER doctor only ordered the CAT scan because I repeatedly requested it. And when they detected a grapefruit-sized tumor on my right ovary, the doctor said, "Well, thank goodness we ordered that CAT scan." The next day, the gynecologist diagnosed me as having stage 4 endometriosis and called that tumor a chocolate cyst. Google explained that a chocolate cyst is an endometrioma, or a cyst filled with dark, stagnant blood such that it resembles chocolate, but has none of the sweetness or aphrodisiac qualities of chocolate, so I don't believe that that name is appropriate. I was in pain, and my pain was only recognized by one person, the Black receptionist. And when she asked if anyone had given me a pain prescription, and I told her no one gave me anything, she said, "Sit down, baby." Left the front desk, went back to the doctor's office when I could not advocate for myself, and came back with a prescription. 4 weeks after my diagnosis, the tumor had grown to the size of a cantaloupe. And by the time I had surgery, 6 weeks after my diagnosis, The tumor had grown to the size of a medium-sized watermelon, was filled with a gallon of fluid, and was infected with E. coli. My healing journey has been a long one. And part of my healing has been prayer, poetry, and narrative medicine. My healing has also come from learning to trust my pain, even when others try to legitimize my distress. My transformation comes from giving voice and being witnessed. Author Frank, in his book, The Wounded Storyteller, says that in sharing one's experience, the wounded storyteller not only recovers her voice, but becomes a witness to the conditions that rob others of their voices. So in exploring the multiple voices of pain, I'd like to end with a poem in the voice of an illness, seeking our bodies as its hiding place. I'd like to play with the implication of naming something so painful as endometriosis with the colloquial name so delectable as chocolate. I'd like to bring attention to this invisible illness and the invisibility of women and Black women in conversations about pain. So imagine a chocolate cyst taking out a personal ad. And consider that if my illness had a voice, would you now advocate and acknowledge our pain? Chocolate cyst, seeking someone special to spend my life with. Are you kissed by the sun and are of a darker skin hue? Are you invisible, even when your cells are viewed under a microscope? Can you carry me annually without anyone noticing? Can you carry yourself and be told you do it so well that you are an inspiration? Are you used to carrying too much history in your bones? Do they call you strong or loud or angry or intimidating as a way to silence you? Do they say you have no pain? Do they say you have no right to express your pain? If so, then I may be your match. I am the kind of presence that will not leave your insides. You say you want someone to grow with you, but what's even better is that I will grow throughout you. I will leave no part of you untouched by my reach. Every inch of you will know that I am with you. We will spend our days together in bed, leaving the world to wonder what fire has consumed you so. I am a match. I will light up every part of you and your world so that we can spend more time together alone. We will spend our nights entangled, tossing and turning, and when the day breaks and breaks and breaks and breaks you, I will not leave you.